In this video, we're going to run through how to use a calculator to evaluate trig functions for given specific angles, okay? Really easy to do, really easy to get wrong if you're not careful. So we're going to run through a few basics, starting with this. All the calculations we're doing so far are in degrees. You notice that I have my first one here is sine of 41 degrees. So the first thing you want to do is you always want to make sure that your calculator is in the proper mode. We have either degrees or radians, okay? We want to make sure that we are in degrees or radians. So in this case, you notice I popped over to radians, I popped back to degrees. So we're going to do 41, and I'm just going to hit sine. Now, in most calculators, you can hit sine of 41 in parentheses and hit enter. It's going to tell you this. So one thing we want to kind of start off by saying is this. We tend to go out about 4 decimal places with trig ratios. So if that's the case, I'm going to get 0.65605. So about 0.6561. So we're going to list this as 0.6561, which leads me to my first point I would like to make here. And it's essentially this. This is just a decimal approximation. This is not exactly what the sine of 41 equals. And also keep in mind that when we say the sine of 41 degrees, what we're saying is we have some right triangle right here where this is a 41 degree angle down here. And if we were to do the sine of this angle, which would be opposite over hypotenuse, we would get that this would be the answer, which is technically 6,561 10,000ths, which is a weird triangle to set up. This would mean that its opposite side is 6561 and this is 10,000. But when you're using a calculator, we tend to just roll with decimals and ignore the fact that this is what it's representing for now. Okay, so the sine of 41, easy to roll out, easy to round, and we go out 4 decimal places. Now this next one says the cosine squared of 56 degrees, and I do want to mention again, when we write squareds on trig functions, we write it between the function and the angle that we are evaluating the function of. So what I mean is, I guess this, we just don't want you to write it like this, cosine 56 degrees squared, because you might think that this squared means something to do with this. So we can totally write that 2 out there, but what we have to do is interpret it this way. We really mean this. So if we were doing order of operations, of course, we would start by evaluating this cosine of 56 before we did any squaring, okay? So we're going to start with that. We say cosine of 56. Let's type in 56. We'll hit cosine. And then we're going to square this. And what I get is about 0.3127. So we say this approximately 0.3127. Okay? But work inside out. Now something like this, what I want to point out here is this. We want to do the trig function first. Okay? We can type in 3 sine 82. Actually, most calculators will do that for you. This one won't. I have to do it in a specific order. But we're going to start with 82. We'll take the sine of 82. And once we get that, we're going to triple this value. So we get about 2.9708. So this is approximately 2.9708. And then last but not least, this one here, 3 tangent squared of 16. Now, just like with order of operations, in the last couple here, we need to do our exponentiation first. And I'm actually going to rewrite this as 3 tangent of 16 degrees squared so that I know that I'm supposed to do this first. So we'll go ahead and start with this. We say 16 degrees, we'll take the tangent of that. So I have the tangent of 16. We now want to square this value. Squared times 3. Okay? Now, any other time I'd actually rewrite, but now that I have the calculator right next to this, and I'm doing a video, I'm kind of doing this the quick way. So it's good to rewrite your work. So about 0.2467. So approximately 0.2467 our value so far. Okay, so moving on. Before we finish up this video, I want to show you that, this calculator right here, and usually most calculators, they're not going to have buttons for secant or cosecant or cotangent. They're just not going to have those on there, but they do have this button right here, which is this 1 over x key. And when you see the 1 over x key, this is our reciprocal key. Okay, so if you were to ever play around with this key on your calculator, this reciprocal key, it's nice. I mean, for instance, if I say, well, what's the reciprocal of 2? It'd be 1 over 2 or a half. So if I hit 2 and I hit this reciprocal key, look, I get a half. And if you reciprocate a half, you get 2. And if you reciprocate a 2, you get a half and 2 and a half and 2. So here's what we're going to do. We know that this is very much the truth. We know that sine or secant of 28 degrees, this is equal to the reciprocal of the cosine of 28 degrees. So what we're going to do is this. We're going to find the cosine of 28 degrees, and then we're going to hit the reciprocal key on our calculators. Okay. So to find the secant of 28 degrees, the very first thing we'd want to do is, of course, we're going to find the cosine of 28 degrees. Just like our last video with the exact values, we say 28 degrees, we'll find the cosine of this. And then we're going to reciprocate this, because this is the cosine of 28 degrees, we want the secant. So now we'll reciprocate it. We end up with this, about 1.1326. So about 1.1326. Again, really easy to get right, but really easy to get confused on if you're not careful. Again, 2 times the cosecant of 47 degrees. What we'll do is this. We'll take this times 1 over the sine of 47 degrees. We'll take it times the reciprocal of the sine of 47 degrees. So in other words, we'll take the sine of 47, which is not what we wanted. We wanted the cosecant of 47. But then we're going to reciprocate this. Because if this is the sine of 47, then there's our reciprocal. This right here represents the cosecant of 47. Look, we still need to take this times 2. So times 2, we get about 2.7347. So about 2.7347. Okay, this is approximate. And last but not least, cotangent squared of 19. So now, here's what we want to keep in mind here. We have the cotangent really of 19 degrees, but what we're doing is we're squaring this value. So we need to find this first, but hey, if we're going to find that, what we really need to do is this. We need to do the reciprocal of the tangent of 19 degrees first, and then we'll square it. So our tangent of 19, we say 19 tangent, okay? So here's our tangent 19. We need to reciprocate this with our reciprocal key. So the inside of this, all of this right here is going to equal this value on the calculator. Now we need to square this. So we get about 8.4344, so approximately 8.4344. So that's how you use a calculator to evaluate trig functions.